Hello Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides patch rundown video. My name is Christoph, and today I'm finally doing the face reveal for you guys in our awesome new set next to Riot Studios. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support this year. It's been amazing creating all this content for you guys, and we're going to do an even better job this year in 2020. Today, like always, I'll be covering all the changes that are made in patch 10.3. This is a huge patch. There are a ton of questions that are being raised. Is Echo finally being gutted? Will Akali no longer be a champion? Is Diana going to be toned down? Don't worry, all these questions will be answered in this video, including a tier list for each role that was made by our challenger analysts and partnered pro players. But remember, since the patch just hit the live servers, please do keep in mind that our tier lists are purely predictions. I want you guys to comment down below and tell me if you agree or disagree with some of these placements. And one more thing, today's question of the day. Who is your most hated champion in League of Legends? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm pretty basic. Mine is definitely Teemo, especially since I main top lane melee characters. And also, before we get started, are you guys getting ganked in your own lane, constantly getting demolished? Don't worry, we've got you guys covered. ProGuides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills. Whether you're looking for tier list champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides is where you'll find them. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and start improving right now. Go find your challenger coach. You won't regret it. Alright, to kick things off, we have 3 new skins joining us on the Rift this patch. First up, we have 2 new additions to the Heartseeker skin line, which feature Jinx and Yuumi. Next up, we have another Prestige Edition skin coming for the True Damage skin line, and it's for Senna. The skin looks amazing, so make sure to save up some RP. Now, let's jump into the balance changes, starting with the top lane. Akali is receiving her bi-weekly gutting in patch 10.3 and is going to be nerfed significantly. Big surprise. First up, her Q 5-point strike will have its energy cost increased by 20 at all ranks. Next up, her W Twilight Shroud will have its movement speed reworked from 20 to 40% flat to 30 to 50% decaying over 2 seconds. And lastly, her ultimate Perfect Execution will now be a targeted ability instead of a skill shot. These changes are aimed at nerfing 2 of Akali's greatest strengths, which are her wave clear and her safety. Having her ultimate be a targeted ability will mean that she can no longer use it to escape ganks. These are some really big nerfs, and Akali will be dropped into the top lane C tier. Set hit the Rift with explosive fashion and is just completely dominating the top lane meta. Although his kit does have clear counterplay to it, his numbers were just way too overtuned and definitely needed a nerf. Thank God this is happening, guys. For patch 10.3, Set's W will have its cooldown increased by 2 to 4 seconds depending on the rank, and the damage on this ability will be nerfed by 20 during the late game. This was definitely necessary. In addition to that, his base HP regen has been lowered from 9.25 to 8 flat. The W changes are going to make him a bit weaker, but overall, he'll still be a solid pick in patch 10.3. Honestly, Set is just super insane. He's still going to be placed in the top lane S tier. Although you don't see Rumble too often in ranks below Master tier, he's actually been destroying every top laner in Grandmasters and above. In order to keep Rumble in check, he'll have his W, Scrap Shield's movement speed, and shield strength nerfed by a significant amount. These changes are aimed at allowing his opponent to trade back with him more effectively because he seemed to take almost 0 damage in short fights. In addition to that, he's also been seeing a ton of play recently in mid, jungle, and even support, so I'm glad Riot has decided to pull the plug. Rumble will be placed in the top lane B tier, but we'll see if that changes next week. The top lane tier list sees a lot of changes in patch 10.3, and the most notable one is Soraka being placed in the S+ tier. So, recently in Korea, a lot of professional players have been spamming Soraka top lane, and no, this is not a troll pick. It's actually quite strong and definitely deserves a hard nerf. In fact, even a Riot Balance team member has confirmed that Soraka top is the best top laner in the game right now. It seems funny, but it's true. And the Rioter also said that she'll be receiving some heavy nerfs very soon. Since top laners have such low impact on the map, you might as well throw in a support in that lane and let them solo farm XP and gold. Then you have a super fed support who can keep the star player in your game alive forever. We'll be releasing an in-depth guide about the best Soraka top lane builds and why it's so OP soon, so make sure to click that sub button to be notified of that when it comes out. Next up in the S tier, we have Set, Kled, Darius, Renekton, Ornn, Fiora, and Vladimir. These 7 champions are some of the strongest in the game right now, and our analysts recommend you try them out. We especially recommend that you give Auron a try because he's quite overpowered and his ban rate is relatively low. This pretty much guarantees you that you'll be able to pick him most games, so you get that free low while you still can. Alright, now moving on to the jungle. Jungle has been one of the weakest roles in the game since the start of Preseason 10. This is mainly due to the XP nerfs that this role received, which has caused junglers to become useless during the mid to late game. For patch 10.3, Jungle will be receiving a buff to its XP and gold generation. First up, the Monster Hunter buff will now grant you 10 more XP per large monster, but the first camp you clear will grant you 15 less. Next up, in order to get the Yi plus Taric funneling strat, the Monster Hunter minion penalty will now give you negative 13 gold on minions instead of 10, and will be removed at 14 minutes. Also, the Krug camp will have its XP buffed from 160 to 175, and the total gold will be buffed by 10 as well. However, the XP and gold are more evenly distributed amongst the small, medium, and large Krugs, so you'll have to clear them all for maximum value. Adding this change will allow junglers to be more versatile with their pathing, which is always a positive. And lastly, the monster XP scaling will be buffed by a slight amount from levels 4 to 7, but the blue and red XP will be nerfed as compensation by 5. Overall, these changes are really small and will only buff jungle by a tiny bit. However, these buffs were much needed because junglers in pro play were falling 4 to 5 levels behind their solo laners despite having similar CS and kill participation. I know some friends of mine who main jungle and just stopped playing League as a result. It got really bad, guys. Okay, on to some of the champion changes. Echo has been destroying solo queue for far too long and is finally receiving a nerf this patch. His passive will now have its monster damage amplifier nerfed from 200% to 150%. This change will affect his clear speed by a decent amount, but he'll still be a great jungler. His 2.25 second stun on his W ability, while having essentially no cooldowns, are going to keep him relevant in the meta. Echo will be placed in the jungle S tier, but there's a good chance he makes it back up into the S plus tier because this champion is broken in solo queue. Lastly, for the jungle, Sejuani will receive a couple of buffs in patch 10.3. The buffs she received in patch 10.2 has made her viable in solo queue once again, but it looks like these next few changes will bring her back into competitive play. First up, her attack speed bonus at level 1 will be increased from 0% to 10%. This is a huge change for her, which will make her clear speed a lot faster. However, as compensation, as Riot always does, her passive will now be procced by small monsters, which will make her take more damage while clearing camps. Decent changes, and I can't wait to see Sejuani and J4 being spam picked in pro play again. Sej will be placed in the jungle S tier for patch 10.3. The jungle tier list sees a few changes in patch 10.3. Starting in the S plus tier, we only have 2 champions, which are Elise and Olaf. Echo has been dropped into the S tier thanks to the nerfs he received, which makes Elise and Olaf the 2 best champs in the jungle. In the S tier, however, we have Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, Shaco, Rek'Sai, Karthus, Zac, Echo, and Sejuani. These 8 champs are some of the strongest picks in the game, and we highly recommend you try them out. Set has been dropped into the jungle A tier thanks to the nerfs he received this patch. Having his HP regen and W nerfed will affect his clear quite a bit. However, Set will be a decent jungler this patch, so you can still play him in this role. But if you aren't an experienced Set player, it's probably better to stick with other junglers. His jungling style is very unique, and you need to have a good understanding of the game to pull off successful ganks pre-6. Next up in the jungle, let's talk about hard farm champions like Karthus, Kindred, and Graves. Since jungle did receive an XP buff this patch, you should expect these champions to become a lot stronger. However, analysts are predicting that these champions will still be a notch below the S tier picks because the XP buffs are pretty small. We'll make sure to give them all a try and let you guys know our thoughts during our mid-patch update next week, so stay tuned for that. Okay, now on to the mid lane. Ever since her rework, Diana's been one of the strongest mid laners in the game. Everyone who's played solo queue knows this fact. Her ability to have solo kill presence pre-6 while also having a game-changing ultimate has made her a bit too overpowered. In order to keep Diana in check, the balance team will be changing her base mana from 420 to 375. On top of that, her W base damage will be lowered from 22 to 70 to 18 to 66. The nerf to her W is completely negligible, but the base mana nerf will impact her early game by a bit. However, you won't notice these nerfs once you purchase your Rod of Ages, and she'll still be able to one-shot your entire team, yes, with one button. Diana will still remain in the S+ tier for mid lane. Despite a couple buffs in the past few weeks, Azir has been continuing to struggle in the meta. In patch 10.3, he will receive a small buff to his ultimate, which will now summon 6 to 8 soldiers instead of 5 to 7. This is a small buff, but it's going to make those Shurima shuffles a lot more satisfying. As a result, Azir will be placed in our C tier. Next up on the list, we have another buff coming to my old main, Corki. For patch 10.3, Corki will now have his special delivery damage per second increased by a gigantic amount. Do not underestimate this change, guys. It could be massive, especially in choke points. In addition to this, the damage over time duration when you knock enemies aside will be increased from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. This is a great change for Corki, but in solo queue, it won't really impact his stance in the meta by too much. His ultimate requires a lot of coordination. As a result, Corki will be placed in the B tier this patch. And lastly, for the mid lane, we have a few changes coming to Galio. Galio has been struggling a lot in the meta, thanks to some heavy nerfs, as you guys know. He was playable as an engaged support a few patches ago, but that has died down thanks to the likes of Nautilus and Leona completely dumpstering him in lane. For patch 10.3, Galio will receive a buff to his Q, Winds of War, which will have its tornado duration increase from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, and his damage ticks increased by 1 as well. This is a big change which will help Galio push waves and gain priority much faster, and as a result, he'll be placed in the mid lane B tier. The mid lane tier list sees a lot of changes in patch 10.3. In the S+ tier, we have 3 champions which are Diana, Fizz, and a new member, Qiyana. Despite receiving a ton of nerfs within the past few patches, Qiyana has been continuing to dominate the mid lane meta. She just has way too many tools in her kit while also having some of the best AoE burst in the game. Qiyana is pretty much a must-picker ban in high elo right now, and I hope she receives some more adjustments in the coming patches. Also, it does appear that she's been removed from the jungle in solo queue, but she's still viable in that role for competitive play. This may lead to some balance problems in the future if teams start picking her more often, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Next up in the mid lane tier list, let's talk about Katarina. Katarina's win rate has been skyrocketing recently, and she's the closest contender to make that push to the S+ tier. Despite being a relatively difficult champion, she currently holds a 53% win rate, 9% pick rate, and 10% ban rate. These stats aren't quite at the S+ tier threshold, but it likely will go up even further this patch. We'll keep a close eye on her statistics and let you guys know what happens during our mid-patch update. Lastly, in the mid lane, let's talk about Akali. Akali's been dropped from the A tier into the C tier, thanks to the nerfs she's received this patch. Nerfing a mid laner's wave clear is probably the #1 way to gut them from the meta. Lane priority is one of the most important aspects of the mid lane right now, and being unable to keep up with your counterpart is super damaging. Akali will struggle a lot in solo queue, but we'll see if she's still viable in competitive play and needs even more nerfs next patch. Okay, now on to the ADCs. Senna's been a must-pick or ban ADC for competitive play recently, and is receiving a few nerfs in patch 10.3. The Balance team want to shift her playstyle from an ADC dominant standpoint towards a support dominant standpoint at this patch. First up, her passive will have its soul drop on minions that she doesn't kill changed from 20% to 25%. Next up, cannon minions that Senna kills will have its percentage nerfed from 100% to 2%. These changes are extremely small and are pretty much negligible, but Senna will still be one of the most broken ADCs in the game, and she'll be placed in the S+ tier. Lucian will be receiving a small bug fix this patch, which will prevent his second auto from critting for full damage, but it won't make a big difference, so he'll remain unmoved. Aphelios received some heavy nerfs in the previous patch, but it has become very clear that they weren't enough. Being able to one-shot someone literally from the other side of the map is really uninteractive and pretty uninteresting. For patch 10.3, the Balance team will be limiting his range on Calibra marks to 2,000 instead of global. As a result, he'll be in the S+ tier. Miss Fortune's been dominating the bot lane meta for far too long and was way overdue for a nerf. Her damage is just insane right now, and almost no AD carry can keep up with her. For patch 10.3, MF will have her attack speed per level lowered from 3 to 2.25. This is a small change, but you'll be able to feel the reduced speed during the later stages of the game. MF will be moved down to the ADC S tier, but we'll see if she makes it back up to the S+ tier next patch. Ever since the removal of Kleptomancy, Ezreal's been struggling to keep up in the meta. However, he will receive a few buffs to his base mana per level and attack speed per level next patch. Ezreal will be moved up into the S tier for ADCs. The ADC tier list sees a couple of changes in our patch 10.3 rundown. In the S plus tier, we have 3 champions, which are Senna, Aphelios, and Caitlyn. These 3 champions are by far the best ADCs in the game, and you should learn a few of them for your upcoming ranked games. In the S tier, we have Ezreal, Misfortune, Jinx, Draven, Lucian, Vayne, and Kai'Sa. These champions are also excellent and will bring you guys great results. In the A tier, we have one unique pick, which is going to be Soraka. Similar to the Soraka top lane pick we mentioned previously, Soraka bottom has been rising in popularity as well. However, surprisingly, Soraka bot is not as strong as she is in the top lane. This is mainly due to the fact that Soraka top is being able to constantly zone out and oppress her melee counterpart, and then just farm the hell out of the lane. However, Soraka ADC is still viable and many pros are giving her a try. Lastly, let's talk about Vayne. Vayne's been doing really well in the meta. Her stats are really good, so be afraid. Her win rate and pick rate are really close to making that push to S plus tier since she does so well into a lot of the strongest champions. However, her recent success has gone under the rug since so much of the focus of ADCs is on Aphelios and Senna. Give her a try in your next normal game. She is a champion that is constantly in and out of the S and S plus tier. You might as well just learn her and master her. Go to ProGuides.com and find yourself a challenger coach right now. They will help you master Vayne. All right, now on to supports. Leona is the strongest support in the game right now and is finally being toned down next patch. Firstly, her W will have its damage lowered from 60 to 220 to 60 to 200. Next up, her E damage will be lowered by 10 at all ranks. These 2 nerfs are aimed at preventing her from being able to 1v1 the enemy ADC, but unfortunately they won't be enough to knock her out of the S plus tier status. Her engage potential, lockdown, and tankiness is still unmatched, and she'll continue to dominate the meta in the S plus tier. Yuumi recently received a mini rework which has made her a lot weaker than intended. For patch 10.3, the Balance team are looking to make her viable again and are buffing her significantly. First up, her Q, Prowling Projectile, will have its mana cost change from 85 to 110 to 90 flat at all ranks. In addition to that, the empowered damage has been lowered from 50 to 275 to 45 to 220. However, as a compensation, this ability will now deal 2 to 8 of the target's current health as bonus damage. Next up, her W, You and Me, will have its CC lockdown duration lowered with CDR, and silences no longer count as immobilizing CC. And lastly, her E, Zoomies, will have its healing change from 70 to 230 with 30% AP ratio to 70 to 190 with 40% AP ratio. Yuumi will be placed in the support A tier this patch. Sona received a pretty big buff last patch, which made her become Sonic the Hedgehog whenever she used her E. However, the Balance team have realized that they went a bit too overboard with this change and are nerfing her this patch. Her E will have its movement speed lowered from 25% with 4% per 100 AP to 20% with 3% per 100 AP. She will be dropped into the B tier as a result. The support tier list sees a few minor changes from last patch. In the S plus tier, we have 3 champions who are Nautilus, Leona, and a new member, Thresh. Thresh has finally one-upped Blitz in the bot lane engage meta and has made his way to the very top. He's one of the few champions who does decently well into picks like Nautilus and Leona thanks to his ability to peel from their engage. A good Thresh player can pretty much neutralize these meta picks completely and not allow them to play the game. In the S tier, we have Blitzcrank, Pyke, Morgana, Senna, Bard, Nami, and Braum. Braum recently received a ton of changes which has strengthened his stance in the meta. A lot of pro players are starting to prioritize him during their pro play drafts, and he's a solid pick in most team comps. In addition to that, he's one of the less popular picks in the S tier right now, so you should learn him if you haven't already. Honestly, I love playing this champ and he's my go-to support when I'm autofilled. That's it for our patch 10.3 rundown and tier list. If you guys enjoyed watching this video, then please leave a like, comment, and sub to our channel. Let us know what you guys think of the new set. We're going to bring some pro players in here. They're going to give you some awesome tips on how to get better at League and also what's going on in the meta. The second part of our meta analysis video will be available next week, which will give you guys the most accurate tier list available using fresh stats. So click that sub button if you want to see it. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.